So I'm Duncan Burbridge, and I'm an executive producer at the Third Floor, and I basically set up and run the London office. We've grown from humble origins there, well, within the company overall, but particularly in London. We started with 7 artists, we're now nearly at 60. So it's just been tremendous growth just in London and in this industry. So it's a really exciting time to be working in Previs. Visualizing full stop, I think, is in high growth. And, there's all these challenges that come into effect with film. Every film has its own unique set of challenges, whether there be budget constraints or schedule constraints, and a lot of the time it's just a case of we need to do something that people have never seen before, and that's really hard. You've got to explore a range of things and kind of critique it and figure that out. But also then you've got to work out how are you going to make that happen? How are you going to shoot that? How are you going to execute it? So I think it's a really exciting time to be in that space. And, I had one producer recently say to me, it's incredibly hard at the level they were at, so quite a high-level producer, saying really difficult to show the audience something different. And I kind of just said, that's where we live. That's what you'll come to Third Floor to do, because that's the space that we inhabit. We want to help make that happen. I was a Previs producer for our London team, so we had a team on it for about 9 months. Peaked at about 14 artists, so it was quite a really big team, as is quite often the case on some of the Marvel projects we do. And I think what was really exciting, actually, for us, as a group, when we first started on that project, we were really humbled that Marvel had asked us back, because we did the first one, and we always love working with Marvel and Marvel's team, and also with Joss, obviously, as well, that, we all sort of around the office saying, wow, right, this is the sequel to one of the biggest, most successful films of all time, how are they going to top that? What are they going to bring to this piece to really accelerate? And there was this collective, I wouldn't say pressure, excitement, energy about that production, I think, where rather than get fearful of that, I think people kind of embraced it and thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we did this and really, take it to another level. And there's a moment actually in my presentation tomorrow when a piece of Previs, when I first saw it, I thought, wow, everyone's got it. Everyone's singing in the same tune. We're really pushing it to another level. So I think that's incredibly exciting. I think Marvel do an amazing job of that. I'm amazed by every time I go and see one of their films. I'm like, wow, you guys really took it I didn't see that coming. You took it to another level. It's not trying to repeat previous successes. They're trying to push the boundaries of things as well. I think so that for a studio that size, I think that's really exciting. It was 9 months of pre and shoot in London, and then we had another 9 months or so. It was 18 months in total, roughly. Another 9 months of post-viz in Los Angeles. So we had a split team. But initially, we came in sort of early in pre. Started with a bunch of sequences, as is the norm on these things. The script goes through these, the evolving is an evolving thing. So we were sort of responding to that and focusing on key areas that Joss and the team felt they needed to zero in on. So a large part of it was previs. I think we did about an hour's worth of previs on the film in total in terms of finished material. So that was a lot of work. But there was also a huge virtual production component about it. And I think that was the most exciting thing for me and all of us really on that particular production was, we go around talking about virtual production, and quite often it's me and a couple of our senior artists telling our clients and visual effects soups the benefits of this as a process and how these tools can really help. But it's something, again, when the VFX soup and the producers, as was the case on this film, sat down on day one and say, we get it. This is how we want to make the movie. We want your help. We want you guys to be involved, and let's work together to make this process happen. And so we had a virtual camera room, for example, set up for the entirety of the production, and it got used everything from location scouting to virtual camera to do shots and blocking and all these sorts of elements. It just became a tool. It just became an aspect of the production. So that's a really exciting development, if you like, and to have it spearheaded by those senior HODs, I think was fantastic. It's an evolutionary thing. I think every director has an involvement with previs to a lesser or more degree, and I think on that particular show, Joss was really hands-on throughout pre, and then obviously as he get close to shoot, he has an enormous amount of stuff to do, and so. but still we're having regular meetings and all sorts of stuff, and using it as a guide for the film itself. And a lot of it was, things shifting around on locations and stuff like that. So really rapidly prototyping sequences was a really big thing. It's something I have in the presentation tomorrow, where we had one sequence where it was a week away from shooting, and everyone went, "Oh my God, we haven't figured that one out yet." So literally got the stunt guys in a mocap suit, shot all their material, spliced it all together, gave the virtual camera to the director and said, "Right, shoot it." And they shot it, we cut it. That was how it ends up being. So it was a really fast, iterative process, if you like, where every department was coming in and helping and working with us to sort of define what that sequence was going to be. As opposed to, normally when you have the Previs teams a little isolated in their own room doing their thing, and then they show it to everybody and people respond, it's always the best experience when all those departments are coming in and looking at it and getting involved. And you can put a stunt guy in a mocap suit, because why would we animate that? Much better off the guy who's actually going to perform on set in a suit, rehearsing, doing their thing. The timing is going to be right, and then you've got this great material that you can start working with. So when we like to think of Previs, in an ideal world, the Previs department is kind of its own department in itself. And so in the way that stunts might interact with grips and camera, Previs interacts with all those other department heads to sort of allow them to gain the information they need, or help you work on the piece as well, because everyone's contributing. That's the nature of film. It's a collaborative process. Obviously, the director has the vision, and that's the direction we're heading in. But if you forsake, the contribution of a stunt coordinator or the DP, or so, you're kind of disservicing the process. That doesn't mean we don't work on projects where a director does keep us to themselves, because they want to go through that process themselves. There's a degree of exploration that they want to go through before they start discussing it with everybody else. So that works as well. It really depends on their method of working. And I think what's exciting on Ultron was Joss is a great collaborator, so everyone was involved. Art department were coming in with new set designs and saying, "Can you just put this into the virtual camera, because Joss is going to come in tomorrow and we want to virtually scout this set we're going to build in 6 months." So that just became part of the filmmaking process. It's kind of now it's like it's all about the arsenal that we have in the group, because really we're trying to communicate complex information as quickly as we can, and there's a real art to the Previs artists to try and extract the information, the vision, if you like, of what's being thought about, and show that to them as fast as they can. But so virtual camera, for example, is a great tool, because one thing I think we're really excited about at Third Floor is taking sort of the abstractness out of that process. So a director sitting with a bunch of artists on Maya, with a mouse and a screen, can be a little intimidating. It's not a world they're familiar with. But if you give a director a virtual camera and say, "This is your set, this is your actors or your performance, shoot your movie," suddenly it's a tangible thing. They get that. They can change the lenses. They feel like they're actually involved with that process, which is incredibly exciting. And you start to see some really amazing results, things that we may never have thought about, or they may never have thought about, because they're exploring it in a very unique way. Asset libraries, obviously, so we build up that library so we're not having to rebuild things over and over again. I think the big thing I've been really promoting and working on within the company the last few years is workflow. So looking at how we can exchange data from art department to Previs to final visual effects, and keep some data consistent across all of those 3 departments, so that things aren't being thrown away. There's an enormous amount of work and discussion and process that goes into Previs, which traditionally in the past has just been sort of severed when it gets into post. And we're trying to sort of go, hey, look, there's years of information, years of direction and decisions and process that can really benefit that later stage. So how do we translate that? How do we work together to get the best result as quickly as we can? I mean, one of the big scenes we did a lot of work on was the Hulkbuster sequence. I don't know if you've seen the film. I'm not going to spoil it then. That was a really big sequence we worked on quite some time, and as the script was developing and things like that, and new scenes were coming in, the whole ending of the film was something that went through quite an iterative process, both in previs and in post. So it was an enormous amount of post-vis done on the film. I think it was like 3,000 shots or something. So a huge volume of stuff. And I think that, you know, being able to very quickly get material out for the director and the editor was really key. So there was a lot of time constraint, a lot of pressure just to keep it such a juggernaut of a film. It's such a massive production. There's such a huge volume of material that's coming through, and each day you're facing new challenges and new problems and new questions and new things that are required. So you're constantly trying to just supply all that information ahead of the shoot. So I think that was a very unique challenge to that particular show.